The galaxy was watching. For years, it had watched the strange species called humans fight a war they could not win. The enemy was stronger, faster, more advanced. Alien fleets ruled the skies. Their armies crushed human defenses again and again. Entire cities burned, their ruins glowing like dying stars on the surface of Earth and on human colonies far away. In open battles, humans stood no chance. Their ships were torn apart. Their soldiers were slaughtered. Every victory the aliens claimed seemed final, as if they were writing the last chapter of humanity itself. But something strange began to happen. When the aliens expected humans to surrender, the humans vanished. They disappeared into forests, deserts, mountains, and broken ruins of their own cities. At first, the enemy thought this was retreat. They believed the humans were broken, fleeing, too weak to fight. But soon, the whispers started. Patrols sent into the ruins never returned. Convoys of supplies vanished into the night. Lone scouts reported being watched, stalked, and hunted. Some managed to crawl back, injured and half-mad, claiming the humans had become something else, something unnatural. "Not soldiers," one survivor whispered before he died. "Hunters," the aliens laughed at first. Hunters? Against them? They had the strongest weapons in the galaxy. What could these desperate, primitive humans possibly do? But then the first strike came. It began small, almost invisible. A transport ship carrying weapons and food exploded mid-flight. The wreckage was found in the jungle, its crew slaughtered. The wounds on their bodies were not from guns or lasers. They were from knives, from ropes, from traps hidden in the trees. Then it spread. At night, alien camps fell silent. Soldiers vanished without a trace. Sometimes only blood remained. Sometimes strange marks were carved into the walls or into the ground, left as a message. A warning. The aliens soon realized that the humans had stopped fighting like armies. They had stopped following the rules of war. No more lines of soldiers, no more grand battles. Instead, they used the shadows, the silence, and the fear. They became predators. The galaxy had always seen humans as weak, emotional creatures. But now, watching from a distance, other species felt uneasy. Something was changing. The humans were breaking apart the image of what soldiers were supposed to be. They were no longer soldiers at all. They were wolves, hiding in the dark. They were shadows waiting in the ruins. They were hunters, merciless and patient. The aliens, so proud and so certain, began to fear. They feared not the human armies, but the silence after sunset. They feared the forests, the caves, and the burned-out shells of cities, because somewhere inside those shadows, humans were watching them. The first strike was not only the beginning of a new war, it was the beginning of a transformation. For every alien soldier who died in the dark, the legend grew stronger. Other armies in the galaxy began to whisper about humanity. They whispered that humans could not be crushed, because humans did not fight to win battles. They fought to survive. And survival made them dangerous. The aliens had expected surrender. What they received was something far worse. They had awakened the hunters, and in the silence of ruined worlds, the galaxy began to wonder, what price will humanity pay for becoming what it must to survive? The war was not ending. It was only just beginning. The first strike had shaken the alien armies. They had expected humans to die quickly, to surrender, to vanish like dust before a storm. Instead, the humans had vanished into the shadows, and from those shadows came fear. The war changed shape. It was no longer a war of fleets and armies. It became a war of silence, a war of whispers, a war of ghosts. The aliens marched through empty streets, their machines towering above the ruins. But the silence was heavy, unnatural. Every window, every broken doorway felt like an eye watching them. Every shadow seemed too deep, too alive. They sent patrols to search the ruins. Most did not return. Sometimes the bodies were found, days later, hanging upside down, marked with strange signs carved into their armor. Sometimes there were no bodies at all, only blood trails vanishing into the dark. The humans had turned the broken cities into hunting grounds. Traps were hidden under the rubble. Mines were buried in the ground. Razor wires were strung between buildings. Every step forward could be the last. The aliens tried to adapt. They sent larger patrols, heavily armed, protected by drones. But numbers did not matter. The larger the group, the louder they became, and the easier they were to track. The humans struck quickly, silently, and then disappeared before reinforcements arrived. The enemy called it cowardice, but the galaxy called it survival. The humans were no longer soldiers in uniform lines. They were hunters in the dark, moving in packs, striking with speed and precision. They did not fight to win battles. They fought to break spirits, to spread fear, and fear spread faster than fire. Alien commanders began to notice changes in their own troops. Soldiers refused to patrol at night. Some broke down, trembling, swearing they heard breathing in the shadows or footsteps behind them. Even when scanners showed nothing, one alien officer, desperate to prove his strength, led his men deep into the ruins. His squad never returned. Days later, his helmet was delivered to the alien command base, covered in blood and marked with human writing. The message was simple. We are watching. The galaxy shuddered. Other species, watching from the safety of distant worlds, began to whisper about humanity. Stories spread of humans who could move without sound, humans who could kill without being seen. Some even claimed humans had turned into creatures of the night, more beast than man. But the truth was simpler and more terrifying. The humans were still human. They were simply using everything they had: patience, anger, intelligence, and the will to survive at any cost. The silent war was not fought with grand armies or mighty fleets. It was fought with shadows, with fear, and with the slow, crushing pressure of never knowing where the next strike would come from. The aliens had the numbers. They had the technology. They had the power of empires. But humans had the dark. And in the dark, the aliens could not win. The silent war dragged on day after day, night after night. For the aliens, every step was dangerous. For the humans, every shadow was home. The galaxy began to see the truth. Humanity was not dying. Humanity was adapting, and each adaptation made them more dangerous than before. The silent war was not just a battle for survival. It was the beginning of transformation. And deep inside the shadows, the hunters were waiting for their next prey. The silent war dragged on. Weeks turned into months. The aliens searched for victory, but what they found instead was fear. Every battle made the humans more dangerous. Every strike from the shadows made them change. At first, the galaxy thought this change was only tactics. They believed humans were simply adapting, using tricks, using patience. But soon, whispers spread of something deeper, something darker. The war was twisting them. Hunger and exhaustion broke the weak, but those who survived became harder, colder. They learned to move without sound, to live without warmth, to kill without hesitation. They stopped looking like soldiers. Their faces were marked with dirt, smoke, and blood. Some painted themselves with ash before going into battle, their eyes wild and sharp. Others wore pieces of broken armor taken from their enemies. Some even tied bones to their belts, trophies from those they had killed. The aliens began to call them monsters. At first, it was only a word to describe their cruelty, but soon it became a truth inside alien minds. These were no longer men and women. They were shadows in the shape of humans, stories spread of humans attacking without mercy. Entire squads of aliens found with their throats cut in silence. Camps burned in the night, the smell of smoke mixing with blood. Screams echoing in the dark until silence swallowed them again. But the darkest change was inside the humans themselves. They no longer fought for victory. They no longer fought for glory. They fought because war was all they knew now. Each kill made them colder. Each night in the ruins pushed them further from what they had once been. Some even began to enjoy the hunt. One alien soldier captured alive told a terrifying story before he died. He said he was trapped for days, hearing laughter in the dark. Not alien laughter, human laughter. Rough, broken, cruel. He said the humans played with him before ending his life. True or not, the story spread like fire. And fear grew. The galaxy watched closely. Other species whispered among themselves. Could this be the true nature of humanity? Were they always like this, hidden beneath their calm smiles and peaceful words? Or was the war creating something new, something the galaxy had never seen before? For the humans, survival demanded transformation, and transformation demanded sacrifice. Their leaders no longer spoke of morality. Their commanders no longer gave orders of mercy. Mercy was weakness. Weakness was death. So the humans abandoned it. They became wolves among sheep, shadows among soldiers, monsters among men. Even within humanity, fear began to rise. Civilians who lived close to the fighters whispered about them with trembling voices. Children avoided their eyes. Some said these fighters no longer belonged to the human race. They belonged to the darkness. And yet, without these monsters, humanity would have been destroyed. That was the hidden cost. To survive, humans had to give away pieces of their soul. To fight monsters, they had to become monsters. The aliens did not understand this. They only saw the terror in the shadows, the hunters with blood on their hands. But the galaxy understood. Watching from a distance, other species wondered, if war could twist humans like this, what would happen when the war ended? Would these monsters return to peace, or would the monsters remain forever? In the ruins of cities and the silence of forests, the answer was already clear. Humanity was not returning. Humanity was transforming, and every alien soldier who vanished into the dark proved it. The monsters were real, and they were human. The shadows had given humanity power. But shadows always demand a price. The humans had become hunters, monsters in the night. Their strikes filled alien armies with fear. Their tactics destroyed convoys, burned camps, and shattered morale. But the cost of this new way of war was heavy, too heavy for some to bear. Civilians lived in fear, not only of the enemy, but of their own protectors. The fighters who returned from the dark were not the same as those who left. Their eyes were cold, their voices sharp, their hands always ready for violence. Families whispered, "Are these still our soldiers? Or are they something else now?" The fighters themselves no longer cared about questions of right and wrong. In the world of shadows, survival was the only truth. When alien forces hid among villages, the humans did not hesitate. They burned the villages down. Men, women, even children. No one was spared if there was even a chance the enemy had been given food, shelter, or information. It was not cruelty at first. It was survival. If one village betrayed them, 100 fighters could die. So the humans taught the galaxy a rule: betrayal will be answered with fire. But over time, survival and cruelty became the same. Some humans began to kill not because they had to, but because they could. Fear became a weapon, and they wielded it without hesitation. Alien prisoners were no longer prisoners. They were bait, traps, and warnings. Their bodies were left hanging in ruins. Their armor painted with blood to terrify others. The shadows twisted everyone. Children grew up in ruins, learning to hide, to keep silent, to watch the dark with wide, unblinking eyes. They played not with toys, but with broken weapons. They did not dream of peace. They dreamed of vengeance. Even other humans feared the hunters. Civilians avoided them, kept their distance, never speaking unless forced. Whispers spread, "They are no longer men. They are something worse." The galaxy agreed. From afar, other species began to fear humanity more than the aliens themselves. Because while aliens were powerful, predictable, and proud, humans had become unpredictable, merciless, and strange. The cost of shadows was not only death, it was the death of humanity itself. And yet, the hunters did not stop. They could not stop. Each day in the ruins demanded more. Each night in the forests demanded blood. To survive, they had to keep going deeper. And with every step deeper, the line between human and monster faded. One alien commander, desperate to understand, asked his advisors, "Why do humans fight like this? Why do they not surrender? Why do they destroy even their own?" The answer came softly, with fear in every word. "Because they are not fighting for victory. They are fighting to survive. And to survive, they are willing to pay any cost." The aliens realized the truth too late. They had not only awakened hunters, they had created them. By crushing human armies, they had forced humanity into the shadows. By bringing death, they had created something worse than death. The galaxy watched in silence, uneasy and afraid, because every ruined city, every burned village, every whisper in the night told the same story. Humanity was no longer just fighting a war. Humanity was becoming something new. The shadows had given them strength. The shadows had taken their mercy. And in the end, the shadows would take their humanity. That was the true cost. And the galaxy wondered with trembling voices, if this war ever ends, what kind of creatures will humans become? The cost of shadows was high, but humanity kept paying. And with each day, their morality, once strong, once clear, began to break. Long ago, humans had rules of war. They believed in mercy. They believed in protecting the weak. They believed in honor. But in the darkness of this endless fight, those rules became chains. And chains could not survive in the shadows. So the rules were broken. Mercy was abandoned. Honor was forgotten. Only survival remained. The galaxy, watching from afar, was horrified. They had seen wars before, but never like this. Other species fought for conquest, for power, for glory. But the humans fought with something far darker. They fought as if nothing mattered but the next breath, the next heartbeat, the next kill. When an alien soldier was captured, the old humans might have kept him alive. They might have traded him, questioned him, treated him with some dignity. But now prisoners were nothing but tools. Sometimes they were used as bait, chained in the open to draw rescue squads into traps. Sometimes they were executed in silence, their bodies left in plain sight to terrify the enemy. Sometimes they were taken into the shadows, never to be seen again. The message was always the same. We are not weak. We are not merciful. We are monsters if we must be. Even among themselves, humans became ruthless. Any soldier who showed hesitation was removed. Any voice calling for restraint was silenced. Fear and cruelty became the new law. For the fighters, it was necessary. For the survivors, it was survival. But for humanity as a whole, it was a slow death of the soul. The hunters wore masks made of broken helmets. They carved strange marks into their weapons. They sang in low, guttural voices before ambushes, songs not of hope, but of vengeance. One alien commander, hardened by 100 battles, admitted in secret, "I have seen armies. I have seen fleets, but I have never seen men turn into beasts before my eyes. These humans, they are no longer fighting a war. They are living it." Fear spread through alien ranks like a sickness. Soldiers began to disobey orders. Patrols refused to enter forests or ruins. Commanders demanded reinforcements, but even reinforcements vanished into the shadows. The humans had broken more than morality. They had broken the will of their enemies, and yet the galaxy also whispered in fear. If humans could abandon morality so quickly, what would stop them from doing the same in peace? Would they ever return to their old selves? Or had the war carved scars too deep to heal? The transformation was complete in many. Their eyes glowed with a strange hunger. Their movements were sharp, almost animal. Their words were few, their actions brutal. No longer men. No longer women. Only hunters. The galaxy had seen conquerors before. It had seen tyrants and destroyers. But this was something new. A species willing to lose itself to survive. A species willing to burn away its own morality for the sake of one more day, one more victory, one more breath. And so the whispers grew. The humans are changing. They are not soldiers anymore. They are monsters born from war. The humans heard these whispers, and instead of denying them, they embraced them. If monsters were what the galaxy feared, then monsters were what humanity would become, because monsters survive. And humanity would survive no matter the cost. The hunters had changed the war. But more than that, they had changed the galaxy itself. Fear spread. Not slowly, not quietly. Fear spread like fire. At first, it was only within the alien armies. Soldiers whispered of humans who could see in the dark, who could move without sound, who could kill without being seen. They said the humans no longer died like men. They vanished like smoke, only to return as shadows. Patrols grew smaller. Then patrols stopped completely. No soldier wanted to march at night. Commanders issued orders, but orders meant nothing if no one obeyed. Entire regiments sat trembling inside camps, afraid of the forests, afraid of the ruins, afraid of the silence. The silence was the worst of all. Every sound of wind, every crack of stone, every shadow seemed like a human waiting with a knife. The aliens had once been proud conquerors, but now they feared the smallest things: footprints in the dirt, strange markings on walls, even the whisper of laughter in the night. The humans had turned fear into a weapon, and that weapon spread far beyond the battlefield. News reached alien homeworlds. Stories carried by frightened soldiers became legends. Parents warned their children of humans, of their endless patience, of their sharp eyes glowing in the dark. One alien elder spoke to his council. "We were told humans are fragile. We were told they are weak, but weakness does not spread fear across the stars. Only predators do that." The galaxy listened. Other species began to hesitate. Some who had once considered joining the war against humanity stayed silent. Others who had been neutral began to watch with caution. Because if the strongest armies in the galaxy could be broken by fear, what chance did anyone else have? The humans did not need fleets. They did not need great armies. They needed only the shadows, and the shadows belonged to them. Alien commanders tried new strategies. They dropped firebombs into forests, burning everything to ash. But for every tree destroyed, humans found caves, ruins, tunnels beneath the ground. They could not be burned out. They could not be starved either. Humans stole food from convoys, hunted in alien territory, and fed themselves with whatever scraps the war left behind. The fear grew worse. Entire alien battalions surrendered, not because they were defeated in battle, but because they could no longer bear the waiting, the silence, the shadows that never left them. And the humans, they welcomed this fear. They painted their armor black. They sharpened their blades until they gleamed in the moonlight. They carved symbols into walls, marks that meant nothing, but filled the enemy with terror. They became legends not only through their actions, but through the fear they spread before striking. Even among themselves, humans understood what they had become. Some whispered, "We are no longer fighting an enemy. We are fighting fear itself." But others answered with cold voices, "No, we are fear itself." The galaxy shuddered. The war had begun as a fight to destroy humanity. Now it was becoming something else. It was becoming a lesson that humanity, when cornered, when desperate, when broken, does not fall. It adapts, it transforms. It becomes whatever the darkness demands. And that truth spread faster than any army, faster than any fleet. Fear spread like fire, and nothing in the galaxy could put it out. The fear had spread. The enemy was broken, but victory did not come easily, and the cost was far greater than anyone imagined. The humans had survived the silent war. They had turned fear into a weapon and shadows into a shield, but the shadows had not released them. Instead, the shadows had claimed them completely. The fighters no longer looked like soldiers. Their faces were hard, their eyes sharp, their movements silent. They wore pieces of bone and broken armor, their clothing torn and blackened from smoke. When they gathered before an attack, they no longer gave speeches of courage or hope. Instead, they stood in silence, staring into the dark, their breathing slow, their hands ready. They did not need words anymore. The hunt was all they knew. The galaxy began to call them something new: the dark breed. The aliens, once conquerors, now avoided entire planets. They abandoned colonies, leaving food, weapons, and technology behind simply to escape the hunters that waited in the shadows. But humanity was not the same as before. The hunters had changed, and the change was permanent. Children who grew up during the silent war no longer remembered laughter. They remembered hiding, silence, and the sound of distant screams. They remembered seeing hunters, humans covered in ash and blood, returning from the night. These children learned quickly: never cry, never shout, never trust the dark. The war had shaped not only the soldiers, but the entire species. The leaders of humanity watched with unease. They had wanted survival, and they had achieved it. But at what cost? What returned from the shadows were not the same men and women who had once fought proudly in open battle. What returned were something else. A commander whispered after one mission, "I do not command soldiers anymore. I command predators, and I do not know if I can stop them when the war is over." The galaxy feared them, but the greatest fear was inside humanity itself, because some humans had begun to enjoy what they had become. The hunt gave them power. The silence gave them control. The fear in alien eyes gave them satisfaction. For some, there was no going back. One soldier carved words into a ruined wall, words that would spread across human camps like fire. "We are not men. We are what the war has made us, and the war has made us monsters." The transformation was complete. Victory came slowly, piece by piece. Entire alien fleets withdrew. Camps were abandoned. Supply lines collapsed. The hunters had broken not just the enemy's body, but its spirit. The war was turning. Humanity was winning, but humanity was no longer the same. The galaxy looked on with dread. They had once seen humans as fragile, emotional, unpredictable, but still human. Now, they looked at the dark breed and wondered if a new species had been born, and humanity itself wondered too. Because when the war ends, what will remain? The people they once were, or the monsters the shadows had created? The final transformation had come, and the galaxy trembled at what it saw. The war was ending. The hunters had won. Alien fleets retreated. Their armies broke apart. Entire worlds once claimed by conquerors were abandoned. The galaxy watched in silence as the impossible happened. Humanity had survived, but the victory was not bright. It was not celebrated with parades, or songs, or banners in the wind. Because the humans who returned from the shadows were not the same as those who had once gone to war. They had paid a price no one could ignore. The hunters walked among their people again, but they did not belong anymore. Their eyes were cold, always searching. Their hands twitched at sudden noises. They slept lightly, if they slept at all. Children who saw them felt fear, not safety. Families kept their distance. Even in peace, the hunters carried the war inside them. The galaxy called them monsters. And for the first time, humanity did not argue, because deep inside, they knew it was true. The silent war had carved away mercy. The endless nights had burned away compassion. The shadows had stolen their humanity, piece by piece, until only predators remained. Yes, humanity had survived. But what kind of humanity was left? The cost was hidden at first. But as the years passed, it became clear men who once fought bravely could not stop hunting. They lived in ruins, waiting for enemies that no longer came. Women who once dreamed of peace now taught children how to move silently, how to kill, how to disappear. Whole generations were raised in fear, their lullabies replaced with lessons of survival. The hunters could not return to being men, and the galaxy knew it. Other species whispered among themselves. If war had changed humanity this much, what would peace look like? Would the monsters stay hidden, waiting? Or would they rise again unleashed upon the stars? A council of alien leaders spoke in fear. Perhaps the war is over for us. But for the humans, it will never end. The shadows are inside them now. And they were right. The hidden cost of guerrilla warfare was not measured in lives lost or battles fought. It was measured in the soul of a species. Humanity had survived, but survival had twisted them forever. No one knew what the future would bring. Would the hunters fade with time, or would they become the true face of humanity, carried into every corner of the galaxy? Only one truth was certain. The aliens had once asked, what happens when humans are pushed too far? Now they knew the answer. When cornered, humans do not break. They transform, and what comes out of the shadows is something the galaxy will never forget. The war was over, but the monsters remained, and they were human.